I've got news for you.
Welcome to Political View,
where citizens come to talk.
Andy, no shortage of hot topics this summer in the political arena, and what a hot summer it was.
It was a record-breaking summer with temperatures outside, and we know the topics that you're going to talk about this week in your first week of American government class are just as hot.
Andy, I'm thinking of three topics that we saw a lot of traffic on this summer. Presidential campaigns, the Supreme Court and that big Roberts decision late in June, and of course the buzz about voter ID laws. Let's talk about the presidential campaign. Obama, Romney, like two attack dogs.
Well, we know that every 4 years we have a presidential election, and while a lot of things are similar in that they're both going to have conventions where they're both accept their party's nomination, we'll go through a cycle of presidential debates. This election is a lot different when you start looking at how early these candidates have gone negative against each other and how much money is being spent to attack the other side.
Negative ads aren't new, Andy, and political science is quite clear. It draws voter turnout down, but it also is an excellent way to define your opponent, which means negative ads work.
Negative ads are more bang for your buck. The average voter tends to pay attention to that attack rather than that fluffy, soft ad. And these campaigns know that. What makes this campaign really unique is how much money is not being spent by the candidates, because they're spending plenty of money, but money that's being spent by independent groups, sometimes called super PACs.
Yeah, everyone's buzzing about these super PACs, Andy, these independent expenditure groups not connected to the campaign, able to collect unlimited monies and spend unlimited monies with no connection to the campaign itself. So they can run just some really dirty campaign ads, and Romney or Obama both can say, I knew nothing of it.
And certainly we know a lot of the topic of the campaign is going to be about last year's most watched Supreme Court decision, and that was about Obama health care.
Obamacare, the Republicans, this was going to be the linchpin of their campaign. Romney was all about repealing Obamacare, and John Roberts, the Republican-appointed Chief Justice, sided with the liberal position, upholding Obamacare. Andy, how does this impact both Romney's campaign and how does it impact Romney's legacy?
Well, Obamacare is at the core of the ideological differences in this campaign and between the Democrats and Republicans generally. The idea that Republicans want less government spending. They want less government in control of our lives. In this case, Republicans don't want the government mandating that citizens get health insurance. Democrats feel the government should be there to especially help those in need, those people who don't have health insurance. It's a really expensive program. Democrats support it. Republicans have thoroughly opposed this program, and so it'll be at the heart and center of the debate between these two candidates.
It is the microcosm of the issues, Andy. Republicans, government's the problem. Democrats, government is the solution. And here we have John Roberts, who in a twist of irony has allowed Romney and the conservatives to say, look, big government is a problem, and it just might actually help Republicans this November. Strange but true. You never exactly know how the Supreme Court's going to affect an election, but one thing is sure, our judicial system is political. Andy, speaking of political, let's talk about who's going to vote in the fall, and these new voter IDs. These new voter ID laws may make it more difficult for some people to vote.
This could also be an issue that the Supreme Court hears again. A couple of years ago, the Supreme Court heard a case from Indiana where Indiana became the first state to require that voters, when they go to vote, have to show a state-issued photo ID.
Which seems reasonable.
Seems reasonable for a lot of our students out there, but you have to remember there's plenty of Americans who don't drive and who don't have photo IDs. And they tend to be more marginalized. They tend to live in the inner cities. And they tend to, we think, vote Democratic. And so Democrats out there are very opposed to these photo ID laws claiming that they are going to be the newest way that Republicans prevent Democratic voters from going to the ballots.
So you're saying, Andy, what appears to be just a common sense idea that you need to have a picture ID to vote, not like if you were using maybe a credit card in an airport or something, you need to have that photo ID. That seems like a common sense idea, but you're suggesting this is really a deceitful ploy by conservatives to marginalize those underprivileged type voters, and so it's really not common sense at all. It's a devious plot to keep Democratic voters out of the voting box.
Well, think about if you have a friend who's gone off to college this year, out of state, and they go get a college ID. Now that's a photo ID, but it doesn't have their address on that ID. So would they be allowed to use that new photo ID to vote in, let's say, Wisconsin? Maybe not. And so there's a whole list of complications where even people who are really eager to vote in this election, and either way, might be prevented from voting if they don't have the right type of ID. That could happen in a state like Pennsylvania.
Say we're learning here that politics isn't just about campaigning and hearing the messages of our candidates. There are also ways to encourage voting and maybe even to discourage voting. This sounds like something we should continue to talk about, and we encourage you here on Political View to keep this talk going. Until again, we see you next week, this has been Political View.
No fancy words, no fancy suits.
Plain talk about issues you need to know.
Just in time.